Okay, if you look over on the left-hand side of your chart, you'll see the money lines. The money lines will rise up from the head and spine line, travel up towards the mercury finger, the pinky finger. These lines will reflect how many income streams you'll experience at any given time. The timeline starts at around age 20 at the head and spine line, and when it transverses that heart line, that's about age 45. And the area between the top of the heart line and the bottom of the little ring around the little finger is the late 40s and up into your 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s and beyond. There's a timeline that runs up through that. Now, these are any income streams from jobs you have or spouse's jobs, investments, inheritance, or any money that comes into your household. And you've got to count student loans, anything that increases your income into your household. Later on, we'll show you how to correlate these lines with the achievement lines and the fate line. So it looks like from age 20 to 38, you've got 2 lines, 2 income streams. From 38 to 63, you've got 4 lines. That's excellent. Then from 63 to 91, you've got 3 lines, 3 income streams. All right, moving on to your relationship and marriage lines. That area just above the flirt lines, just below the bottom ring of that mercury or that little finger, are your relationships and your marriages. These horizontal lines sit between the top of the heart line and the bottom of the ring on that little finger. There's a timeline there, and you divide these up into 3 sections. Now, coming up from the bottom, that first section is your 20s and 30s, the middle section is your 40s and 50s, and that third section is 60 and above. You'll read those lines beginning from the back of the hand, which is the start of the relationship or the marriage, towards the palm, which is later on. The lighter lines will be relationship lines, and the darker ones, the more prominent lines, will stand out and have a great density and color to them, reflect your marriages. Now, as we take a look at those horizontal lines on the edge of your right hand, and we can see a couple of little relationship lines. They kind of show up there. And then you have a little longer term relationship. We can see that. But then you've got this very strong marriage line. And that's sitting about the time frame that it is now. So this looks like your current relationship. And it's a good marriage line. Now, it does have a little bit of an overlapping line. And what that means is physical separation. Now, that's nothing bad. That just means that maybe somebody else is working in a different city, military service or something like that. But there's kind of a physical separation. But it's a good, deep line with some good color. Then you've got another little tiny relationship all the way up there in your late 70s. But it's a very strong marriage line. Now, the children lines come down vertically from the bottom of that ring around the mercury finger, and you count them from the inside of your palm to the outer edge. And these can be biological children, stepchildren, adopted, godchildren, or nieces and nephews. Any child that you build a strong bond with. Now, as we take a look at those vertical lines, and these sprout right just off the bottom ring of that pinky finger on the right hand. And you've actually got 4 children lines there, and they're really robust lines too. It means you'll have a good bond with those children. And then you got a little gap, and then there's a bunch of little lines behind that. Those are grandchildren lines. We don't usually count those in your hand. Those are better counted in your children's hands. But you've got 4 very robust children lines. Look for the hand analysis chart. It has the big hand on it, and we'll work off that chart and bring the other charts in as we need them. The first thing you need to know is that your left hand is your past. Your right hand is your present and future. It does not matter what your dominant hand is. Most of the work we do is on the right hand. Sometimes we'll reference that left hand. Before we get started, let me give you a little insight about palmistry and how the lines and markings are named. It's about 2,000 or 3,000 years old. Some say it's even a little bit older than that. And they've gone through and they've named all the fingers in certain sections of the hand with names of Greek gods and goddesses, or with astrological names. So that index finger is the Jupiter finger. The middle finger or business finger is the Saturn finger. The ring finger is the Sun finger. Some like to call it the Apollo finger or the finger of Apollo. The little or the pinky finger is the Mercury finger. That section there between the head and the heart line is called the Mars area. Another important area is the base of the thumb, that little fat pad. It's the Mount of Venus, the goddess of love. This will reflect your sexual libido. It also shows how well you're hydrated. You want to see a little fat pad there so tight you can hardly pinch or pick up the skin. And you look to be slightly dehydrated. You can go online and see how much water you need for your height and weight. Okay, look down there on your chart where it says palm shape. The shape of your palm is your most important talent, and it looks like you have a round palm, which means you're artistic. You see color and shape in a proportional manner. Okay, look in the upper right-hand corner of your chart, and this is your fingertip shapes. They reveal your personality type. And you have round fingertips, meaning you're intuitive, quick, compassionate. You should actually be in the health field. Okay, now the length of your fingers in relationship to the length of your palm and other fingers are your talents, what you're good at. Long fingers mean one thing, short fingers mean another. No one gets shorted. Everyone has their own unique talents. Nothing is good or bad. They all have their good qualities. Let's start with the thumb. You have a short thumb. It means you work well with numbers. They come easy to you. You remember phone numbers, dates, anything that deals with numbers. A lot of accountants and mathematicians have short thumbs. Alright, moving on to the Jupiter finger, that is your index finger. You have a long index finger, which means you have a great sales ability. These are fingers of politicians, teachers, supervisors. It's a leadership finger. Okay, your business or your Saturn finger. Now this is the finger that is the basis of all measurement for all the other fingers. It should be almost as long as your palm. And you have an average Saturn finger, meaning you're concerned with social issues and how they affect your fellow man, but you understand that business must be conducted in a professional manner that results in a win-win situation. Now the ring finger, or the sun finger, some call it the finger of Apollo, is your creative finger. It represents your right brain. And you have a long sun finger, which means you're very creative, imaginative, inventive. Finally, your pinky finger, or your Mercury finger. This is your scholarly finger. It represents your left brain. And you have a short Mercury finger. It means you're a hands-on person. You're active. You get things done. Okay, let's start with the lines and markings on the palm of your right hand. Look on your chart and find the heart line. It's the top horizontal line just under the fingers. Now follow the heart line to the end just underneath that Mercury finger, or that pinky finger. Those are your flirt lines, the little tassels on the end of the heart line. That's a good indicator of how well you interact with others. And you actually have some good tassels on the end of that heart line. It means that you interact pretty well with people. Even though you're really kind of a private person, you don't really put yourself out there to meet new people or to interact with them, but when you do it pretty good. Okay, we're going to shoot over here to the heart line. The heart line is the horizontal line at the top of the palm. It's just below the fingers and tells us about your emotional state and the physical health of your heart. And you have a curved heart line. It means you're loving and caring, very compassionate person. Now, your heart line also reflects the health of your heart. You want a nice, clean, consistent line without breaks or little islands on it. If you have these markings, that can indicate a little bit of stress on that heart. Now, as far as your heart line, as far as your heart health goes, your heart line actually looks really good. It goes along nice and consistent. You don't see a bunch of big breaks or islands in the line. You see a little tiny bit of fussiness there up in your 60s, but that's not too bad, really. You do have what we call triangles underneath. Just a couple of small ones. And that would indicate a little bit of stress on that heart. But we'll take a look in the spine line here in a minute and see if that's maybe not a contributing factor. But for the most part, that heart line actually looks really good. Now, I'll tell you how to double check that line if there's anything serious, and you want to look at the edge of your fingernails. And if you have any kind of a steep roundness to them, or what we call clubbing, especially if they grow over the end of the fingertip, then you want to look at the nail beds. There should be a nice pink color underneath that nail bed. You don't want any kind of blue or bluish tinge. Because if you do have kind of a bluish tinge to that, it means you're not getting the blood flow or the oxygen to the extremities. It means that your heart's actually working a lot harder than it should be. And if you have any of these indicators, you probably want to get a hold of your doctor and have them take a look at your heart. Alright, moving on to the sixth sense. The sixth sense is your intuition. It shows up as a nice little mound just under that index or that Jupiter finger on the right hand, and you want to see that nice little fat pad there. It's called the Mound of Jupiter. Now, as we take a look at the Mound of Jupiter on your hand, just under your index finger, and you've got a pretty good Mound of Jupiter, it means you've got a good sixth sense, a good intuition. Let me tell you how to use or develop that intuition. Whenever you have a problem that seems difficult to solve, find a nice quiet room in the house, one without distractions, and sit down, turn off the lights, relax and quiet your mind. And when you're nice and calm, ask out loud for a solution to your problem. Then put it down and out of your mind and walk away for about probably 30 minutes and let your intuition and your subconscious work on that answer. And when you come back to it, you should have an answer. Listen to the small promptings, the still small voice in the back of your mind, and you should receive an answer fairly quickly. And this actually works really well at night. If you do this just before you go to sleep and let that subconscious mind kind of work on that overnight, you'll find that when you wake, you have a good answer to your problem. Okay, now the spine line, which is also called the head line, reveals the health of your spine. And it'll show if you have problems with vertebrae or discs in your back. It will show if they are subluxated. And what this means is they're turned out of place or they could be damaged. Or you could have a condition such as scoliosis or a twisting of the spine. It starts right there between the thumb and index finger, or the Jupiter finger, and travels across the palm just under the Mercury finger. Now pull up your spine chart. It's called the Chart of Effects of Spinal Misalignment, and that section underneath the index finger, if you're on your spine line underneath the Jupiter finger, that represents your cervical spine, kind of that neck area, that 1C to 7C, and it goes down to what's called the Dowager's Hump. This is the hump that you see in older folks when they're walking around and they're kind of bent over there at the neck, just under the bottom of the neck and the top of the back. That's where your cervical spine is. Then the area just underneath that Saturn or that middle finger is your thoracic spine. This is your 1T down to your 12T. That's the back that goes all the way down to your waist. Then there's that area underneath the sun finger or the ring finger, and that's your lumbar area. This is 1L to 5L. This is kind of your waist and your hips. Then, of course, you go down to your sacrum and your coccyx to the tailbone, which is underneath that little or that Mercury finger. Let me tell you a little bit about Kat has a master's degree in health education, and when she was going to college, she was developing her craft in hand analysis, and she came across a book from a longtime doctor, Dr. Eugene Scheinman, and he talked about how your spinal health absolutely shows in your hands, and working with Kat over the years, it's proven to be very real and accurate. And I always get a little chuckle when I hear back on some of the past clients that have taken their charts to their chiropractor or their physical therapist and having an evaluation, and the medical care provider was amazed how spot on the charts were. Okay, let's look at your chart. If you look over there on the left-hand side of your chart, you'll see an image of a spine, and you can see where Kat circled some of the vertebrae. And you'll notice at the top of that spine line, that 1C down through 5C, that's kind of almost all the way down through the neck, is turned out of place. Let's see. Oh, you didn't say if you had any damage in that spine in your information or not. But you definitely have some issues with those either being turned out of place or misaligned. And then that 1T, that top thoracic down to the 6T, that's kind of right in the middle of your back between your shoulder blades. You've got some issues there. And then the 10T down to the 1L, down to the lumbar. You've got some misalignment there. Now if you look over to the right, you'll see the areas column, and that'll show what parts of the body that affects when you've got issues in that spine. Then of course the effects all the way over to the right will show you what kind of symptoms you can have when those are turned out of place, or when you have damage or any issues there. Now we talked a little bit earlier about that headline and having some depression or some anxiety. Well, when that 1C in the top of the spine is out, that can definitely contribute to depression. Along with that 2T, when that's out, that can definitely get some anxiety going, a little bit of chronic fatigue. And we talked about that heart line where you had a little bit of stress on that. When you have that 2T out, well, that really causes chaos sometimes. Puts a little more stress on that heart than necessary. So you can kind of look up and down this chart and see if you have any of the other symptoms. You can see what might contribute to that with some of these vertebrae being out of place. And I'll tell you what we usually suggest is to get into a good chiropractor or even a good physical therapist is even better, and have them see if they can't get that realigned and get that energy flowing down through that spine really good. And when you have that 1C out, you want to find somebody that knows craniosacral work, because what they'll do is they'll go up into the roof of the mouth and adjust those plates where all those nerves are, and that gives them a little better access to get that 1C put back into place. We find a lot of times that when people get those realigned, that they just have a lot more energy, a lot more ambition, and they just feel a lot better during the day. So that's something to consider. And I've seen many of Kat's clients and people she's done readings for, they'll take these charts down and show it to their doctors, and it's kind of a funny story how people will come back and their doctors are just amazed how accurate these spine charts are. All right, let's move on to your achievement lines. Now these achievement lines are small lines that rise up off the top of the lifeline, and they travel up towards that Saturn finger. The small lines represent your achievements, your successes, all of your wins in life, like graduating high school or graduating college also, marriages, having children, getting a new job, a promotion, coming into money, any type of thing, like winning awards, anything that's a win in life. Now these rise off the top of the lifeline until you're around age 40, and then right there at the bottom, it kind of moves to the inside of that lifeline where they rise up. Let's look at what ages your achievements are. That will be on the top of your chart up there towards the left-hand side of your chart, and you have achievements at these ages. And oh my gosh, you've got a lot of achievements, so let's go through them. You've got achievements at age 17, 24. 24 is a really good one. We have it circled there. Then 27, 30, 35, 38, and 42 are both really good achievements. We have them circled. Then 46, 49, another good one at age 53. Then you have one at age 56, another good one there at age 59, then 63, 66, 70, 73, 77, and 79. Now, something you must understand about these lines or any other lines that we quote an age on, and these are just approximations, you want to add or subtract a year or two from that age. For example, let's say we indicate like age 50. That could be age 48, 49, 50, 51, 52. We don't always hit the age right exact, but we come pretty close most of the time. Now, who your guardian angels are will show in your left hand, and your left hand only. If you've had a visit or some type of intervention or even an interaction with them, that will show in your right hand. So let's start with who your guardian angels are. Now, as we look in this left hand, who your guardian angels are represented by a line that runs parallel to the lifeline. If you look on your hand chart, you can see where the lifeline is. It starts up there between your index and your thumb and travels down your thumb or down around your wrist. And there's a timeline on that lifeline that starts at your earliest age and progresses as you grow older. Age 10 is right at the very edge of your palm, right there between your thumb and Jupiter finger, and as that travels down, you draw an imaginary line straight down from the inside of your index or that Jupiter finger, kind of that area right there between your index and your middle Saturn finger. That is about age 20. As you travel down the line to where that lifeline turns right at the kind of the bottom base of that thumb, and it goes around the wrist, that's right around age 40, and as it gets down around the edge of your palm, the outside edge, around the wrist, that's about age 56, and then it goes backwards on around the back of the hand, and that's your 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond. Now, where that guardian angel line touches on your lifeline is the age that you were when a loved one passed away. There will be a third small line that intersects that guardian angel line, and this shows who your guardian angel is. This is kind of showing where they passed away. And this can be grandpas, grandmas, parents, aunties, uncles, siblings, cousins, nieces, nephews, children, or close friends, anyone that you had a strong bond with. Now, who your guardian angels are show at these ages, ages 15, 19, 22, and 27. Now, if you've had a visit or any kind of intervention from your guardian angels, it'll show in your right hand. These are the same lines as in the left, but they run parallel to the lifeline, and they travel up and eventually touch on the lifeline. The small intersecting lines are not present in the right hand because that line reflects the death of a loved one. Now, these show a visit or some kind of intervention or interaction, such as if, like maybe you received a warning that caused you to avoid an accident or something tragic, or you're in a bad accident and survived, or if your guardian angel just come to check in on you and give you a message in a dream or something like that. And I really get a kick out of some of the dozens of stories that clients have told about interactions they've had with their guardian angels. And I hope you don't mind, I've got to tell you about this story. And it's one that really resonates in my mind, is when Kat was reading the hand of a little older gentleman. He was probably in, probably his 50s, and she discovered a prominent guardian angel line that showed in his hand right around age 40. And she asked him what happened here. Well, this poor guy got really emotional, and without hesitation, he starts to describe in detail how he was sitting at home alone one evening, and he's getting a little concerned about where his 16-year-old daughter was, who had gone out to a high school football game, and she was late getting home, and he was getting a little concerned. And he tells about how he was sitting in his favorite chair in the living room, and he glanced at a portrait of his deceased wife that was sitting up on the mantel, and he heard her voice clear as day. But this was more in his head than kind of audible. And it states how he needed to go out and find his daughter. So he called his sister, and they ran all over town looking for his daughter. They were eventually guided to this little mom-and-pop restaurant, where they got in there, and he saw his daughter standing out back behind the restaurant. And there were a bunch of guys on bikes, and they were riding around her and harassing her, so he went to his car and grabbed a baseball bat, and he went out and chased them off. Well, it turns out that his daughter had gone to get some shakes with some of her friends after the game, and she somehow got a wrong turn and ended up out back of the restaurant. So as this guy was getting his hand read, he was telling Kat this story, and his daughter was sitting right next to him, and she's nodding her head in agreement, and she's getting really kind of emotional. Kat then says to her, "Show me your right hand," and sure enough, his daughter had the same very prominent guardian angel line right there at age 16. So the lines matched up. So isn't that interesting? And we're actually going to publish a book in the near future with all those amazing stories in there. Okay, now, any visits from your guardian angels or any kind of divine intervention or celestial protection shows at these ages. Ages 15, 19, 22, 25, and 29. Now, you have what is called creative achievements. These are awesome lines to have. These lines rise up from the heart line up towards the ring finger, the sun finger, and that means you're going to be recognized for something creative. Whether you write a book or literature, develop some kind of art, music, or even invent something, a different way of doing something. It means it's going to be very substantial and you're going to be recognized for it. I was looking at some palm prints here a while back of Albert Einstein, and he's got a couple 3 lines that go up there, and then they turn into like 10 or 15 lines, and we know what he was recognized for, all the things that he did to contribute to humanity. And you've got some good creative lines there. Okay, on to the headline. The headline is the horizontal line that spans across the middle of your palm. It sits just below that heart line, and if you look on your chart there, it starts in between the thumb and index finger, and it ends towards the edge of the palm just underneath that mercury finger. Now this line represents your intelligence, or better yet, how well you use your mental energy. The straighter across the palm that line goes, the sharper you are. If it dips down just a little bit at the end, or even a lot into that luna area, that little fat pad that runs vertical up to that little finger from your wrist on the outside of your palm, it can indicate a little bit of depression or brain fog. And this is when your mind just doesn't quite work at its peak performance. And this can be related to other aspects, other markings that are around the head and spine line, and we'll talk about those in a minute. Now, as we take a look at that headline, your headline actually goes fairly straight across the palm of your hand. Now, when you get out on the end of that, just underneath that ring finger, or that sun finger, and actually the end of it kind of stops there underneath your mercury or your pinky finger, you can see where it dips down just a little bit into what we call the mount of the moon, and that can indicate a little bit of depression, a little bit of anxiety, but we'll look in that spine line and see also if that's a little bit of a contributing factor. But it means you use your mental energy fairly well, so it's a fairly smart headline. Okay, we're going to move on to your fate line. The fate line, this is in your right hand only, reflects changes in your lifestyle or career, and they're really actually kind of interconnected. There's a timeline that starts at the bottom of the palm. It's right there right around the wrist, which is your younger years, and it travels up towards the middle Saturn finger for your later years. Now, whenever there's a break in that line, it will show a change in your lifestyle or career, and if you have more than one line, that depicts additional responsibilities like another job or taking care of someone or something like an intense hobby or maybe even a cause that you're a part of. Now, this fate line will also show how long you'll live in your present state of health, and this is barring any foreseen accidents or disease. Now, that fate line starts at the base of the palm and travels up, and if it starts right in the center, you're kind of a private person. If it starts on the outside, you're a social person. And your line starts in the center, means you're a private person, meaning you prefer not to be around a lot of people most of the time. You're really kind of an introvert. Now, just because you're a private person doesn't mean that you don't socialize with people or that you don't get along with them. It just means that by the end of the day after dealing with people, you like to kind of go home and close yourself off and decompress. Now, if you'll look down in the right-hand bottom corner of your chart, you'll see the fate line, and this is when you have changes in your career or lifestyle, and they're really both interconnected. So it looks like from age 20 to 38, you've got 2 lines. Now, this could be, like we talked about before, 2 jobs or any kind of responsibility. Maybe 1 job and taking care of someone, an intense hobby, or some kind of a cause you're working for. And it looks like you've got changes there at age 24, 30, 33, 35, and 38. Then from 38 to 53, you've got 4 lines, with changes there at age 42, 47, and 49. Then from 53 to 91, you've got 3 lines, with changes there at age 56 and 66. And then those lines go up there to about age 91. Okay, now we talked a little bit earlier about how to put these money lines, achievement lines, and fate line together. And we're going to backtrack a little bit here. It looks like you've got a big achievement there at age 24, and you can see that change down there on your fate line. Along with age 30, you can see the achievement and the change down there on the fate line at age 30. Along with age 35, then you've got a big achievement here at age 38. That shows us a change down there in your career lifestyle on the fate line. Then at 38, you've got a big increase in your income streams when you look over on the money lines. And you've got another big achievement there at age 42, and that shows us a change down there on your fate line, along with age 49. Then you've got another achievement there at age 56, and that shows down there on your fate line. Then at age 63, you've got another achievement there, and that shows when you have a little bit of a decrease in your income streams. Then you've got another achievement at age 66, and that shows another change down in your fate line. So that's how you put all these lines together to see the big picture.